A proud racist billionaire discovers the brilliant black economist he just publicly humiliated doing an unexpected noble act of compassion, quietly redirecting resources to retrain the very workers his $3 billion project had displaced. What happens next is unbelievable. Let me take you back to Atlanta in the fall of 2024. The city was pulsing with contradiction, glass towers of new money rising beside blocks that still carried the weight of old wounds. In that tense landscape, two very different lives were about to collide in a way neither could have imagined. Our story begins with Dr. Elena Brooks. Every morning at 5:17 a.m., her alarm cut through the quiet of her modest three-bedroom home in the West End. Elena, 46, would rise without complaint, brew a single cup of strong coffee, and stand at the kitchen window watching the sky turn from ink to rose. She still lived in the same neighborhood she'd grown up in, not because she couldn't afford better, but because she refused to forget where she came from. Public housing projects, food stamps, the constant hum of uncertainty. Those memories weren't scars, they were fuel. By 6:30 she was already at the Unity Capital Fund's headquarters, a converted warehouse she had fought to save 3 years earlier. The space smelled of fresh paint, strong coffee, and hope. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead as her team trickled in. Latina loan officers reviewed applications at long wooden tables. American data analysts crunched numbers on laptops. White veterans who had come home with more questions than answers handled logistics. They called her the quiet force, and they meant it. Elena moved through the open floor like a conductor. She stopped at a young entrepreneur's station, a single mother named Maria trying to scale her mobile bakery. "Your numbers look solid," Elena said, voice warm but steady. "But let's talk about that supply chain gap. You're one delayed shipment away from losing everything. We're not just giving you capital, we're building you armor." She spent 20 minutes sketching a contingency plan on the back of a napkin, her mind sharp as ever. This was her hidden talent, seeing potential where others saw risk. She had clawed her own way from those same projects to an Ivy League scholarship, forever changed by one retired teacher who quietly paid her college application fees 1 month when the lights were about to be cut off. That single act of kindness had planted a seed. Elena was determined to grow an entire forest. Her days stretched long, 18 hours was normal. Board meetings bled into late-night coaching sessions. She carried quiet rage at the invisible barriers that still rose in front of her every time she walked into a room full of suits. Yet that rage never turned bitter. It turned into hope. One successful business, she believed, could lift 10 families. One cooperative could revive an entire block. She lived for the moment a recipient called her in tears, saying, "I finally feel seen." But Elena was tired. Widowed young, estranged from a family that never understood her drive, she poured everything into the work. Some nights she sat alone in the warehouse after everyone left, staring at spreadsheets until the numbers blurred. The loneliness was a dull ache she rarely named. Still, she showed up. Every single day. Because kindness had once saved her, and she was determined to pass it forward. Now picture the other side of town. Victor Lang, 68, self-made billionaire, ruler of a $12 billion empire of commercial real estate and logistics. The morning after the gala, the internet was on fire. Clips of Victor Lang's cold refusal looped endlessly. Comment sections exploded with outrage, memes, and calls for boycotts. Victor sat in his penthouse, staring at the screen, jaw tight. His phone buzzed non-stop, board members worried, lawyers advising damage control, his daughter texting a single disappointed emoji. He poured another bourbon at 10 a.m. and told himself it was nothing. "She'll get over it," he muttered. But something in Elena's calm dignity had lodged under his skin like a splinter. Meanwhile, at the Unity Capital Fund warehouse, Elena arrived to a standing ovation from her team. They were furious on her behalf. "We should go after him," one analyst said. Elena raised a hand, voice steady. "No. We don't fight hate with hate. We fight it with results." She had already been quietly reviewing Victor's flagship $3 billion waterfront development project, Riverside Towers, that threatened to displace longtime residents and small businesses. Environmental reports showed risks. Community impact studies highlighted gentrification dangers. That same morning, she accelerated the ethical divestment recommendation her team had prepared weeks earlier. Not out of revenge, but because the numbers didn't lie. What Victor didn't know was that Elena wasn't just an economist, she was a builder of lives. While the world focused on the handshake snub, she focused on the people who would suffer if the project went forward unchecked. 2 days later, the first real connection happened in the most unexpected place. Victor's development site on the Chattahoochee riverfront was a hive of activity, cranes groaning, trucks rumbling, hard hats everywhere. But that afternoon, the mood shifted when pension funds and major impact investors began pulling out, citing the viral video and the Unity Fund's detailed risk assessment. Financing froze. Stock dipped 8%. Contractors panicked. Victor stormed onto the site in a tailored suit and hard hat, barking orders, trying to project control. That's when he saw her. Elena stood at the edge of the site in jeans and a Unity Capital Fund polo, surrounded by a small group of displaced workers, black dock hands, white truckers, immigrant welders, who had shown up hoping for answers. She wasn't protesting. She was listening. Taking notes. Promising nothing she couldn't deliver. Victor marched over, chest puffed. This is your doing, isn't it? Shutting down $3 billion of real progress because I hurt your feelings." Elena turned, meeting his eyes without flinching. The same calm grace from the gala. "Mr. Lang, this isn't about feelings. It's about families who live here. About jobs that last longer than one construction boom. Your project looked good on paper, until we looked at the human cost." For a moment, Victor was speechless. He expected anger, tears, maybe a viral confrontation. Instead, he saw a woman who spoke with quiet authority, backed by data and genuine care. One of the workers, an older black foreman named Marcus who had 20 years on the docks, stepped forward. "She's the only one who came down here to hear us, not just talk at us." Victor's eyes narrowed, but something shifted. He saw the fear in the workers' faces, men and women who had built his empire with their hands, now staring at unemployment. For the first time in years, the numbers on his spreadsheets had names and families attached. That evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the river gold, Victor did something that surprised even himself. He stayed. He listened while Elena explained the retraining program her fund was launching right there in the neighborhood Victor had planned to gentrify. Free skills workshops in welding, logistics tech, small business management. She wasn't asking him for money. She was showing him a better way. Before he drove off in his black SUV, Victor did a small but meaningful thing. He pulled aside Marcus, the foreman, and handed him a thick envelope. "This is for the crew, dinner tonight, on me. Real food, not that truck stop stuff." It wasn't an apology. But it was the first crack in his armor. Marcus later told Elena, "Eyes misty, he didn't have to do that. Man like him? Most would have just driven away mad." Elena smiled softly. Sometimes the smallest gesture plants the biggest seed. Back at the warehouse that night, Elena opened up just a little to her team. "I keep thinking about that teacher who paid my application fee when I was 18. She didn't know me. She just saw potential. Maybe Mr. Lang saw something tonight too." Victor, alone in his penthouse, poured a drink but didn't finish it. He replayed the scene at the riverfront. Elena's steady voice. The workers' hopeful faces. The way she refused to play the victim even after he had humiliated her publicly. For the first time in decades, he felt a flicker of something other than pride or anger, respect. The trust was fragile, barely a thread. But it was there. Before we continue with this incredible journey, I spent countless hours researching and crafting this story to bring you something truly meaningful. If stories like this touch your heart and you want to see more acts of kindness that restore faith in humanity, please subscribe and hit the notification bell. It means the world to me and helps these important stories reach others who need to hear them. Now, let's see what happens next. Have you ever witnessed an act of kindness that completely changed your perspective? Share your story in the comments below. I read every single one. The weeks that followed were a delicate dance of suspicion and small breakthroughs. Victor started showing up unannounced at the riverfront retraining workshops, not as the boss, but as a silent observer. He'd stand at the back in his expensive coat, arms crossed, watching Elena teach a class on financial literacy to a room full of former dock workers and truckers. One afternoon, a young white veteran named Tyler struggled with a basic budgeting spreadsheet. Elena sat beside him for 40 minutes, patient and encouraging, breaking it down until the man's shoulders relaxed and he cracked his first smile in weeks. Victor watched the entire exchange without saying a word. Later that evening, as the sun set, Victor approached Elena outside the warehouse. The air smelled of rain and fresh-cut grass from the community garden nearby. "You're good with them," he said gruffly, the closest thing to a compliment he could manage. Elena looked up, surprised but composed. "They're good people who just need a fair shot. Same as I did once." They talked for almost an hour. Victor admitted, in halting words, how lonely the penthouse felt since his wife died. How his children barely spoke to him anymore because I was always too busy building the empire to be a father. Elena shared just enough about the teacher who changed her life, about the night she wondered if she was doing enough for her community. No grand speeches. Just two people, standing under streetlights, letting guarded walls lower a few inches. Their growing relationship began creating ripples. Marcus, the foreman, started mentoring neighborhood teens in welding after hours, using skills Victor's own projects had once demanded. A single mother from Elena's co-op, Jamal's wife, began sharing childcare with Tyler's family so both couples could attend evening classes. Small kindnesses multiplied. The community, once divided by the threat of the development, started feeling like a neighborhood again. But not everyone was happy. Victor's own board turned against him. His longtime CFO called an emergency meeting. "You're being soft, Victor. This woman is costing us millions. Pull back before we lose everything." His estranged son even reached out, not to reconcile, but to warn him that associating with that crowd would ruin the family name. At the same time, some activists in Elena's wider circle accused her of selling out by even speaking to Victor. "He humiliated you on camera. Why are you giving him the time of day?" The major obstacle hit like a storm in late November. A lawsuit landed on Elena's desk, filed by one of Victor's aggressive competitors who claimed the Unity Capital Fund had engaged in coordinated sabotage of the waterfront project. The legal threat was serious: millions in potential damages, possible shutdown of the fund's operations, and an injunction that would halt all retraining programs. Elena's team panicked. Funding was already tight. If the lawsuit succeeded, dozens of families would lose the lifeline they had just begun to trust. Victor faced his own test. His lawyers advised him to stay silent and let the competitor crush the fund. "It solves our problem for us." For 2 sleepless nights, Victor sat in his penthouse, bourbon untouched, staring at old photos of his late wife. He kept remembering Elena's calm voice at the gala, her patience with Tyler, the way Marcus had thanked him for that simple dinner envelope. On the third morning, Victor made his choice. He walked into his boardroom and announced he was pulling support from the lawsuit and instead offering to testify that the divestment had been based on legitimate risk concerns, not personal vendetta. The room erupted. Board members threatened to resign. His own lawyer called him crazy. That same afternoon, Victor drove to the warehouse. He found Elena in her small office, head in her hands, looking more vulnerable than he'd ever seen her. For the first time, she let the exhaustion show. "I don't know if we can fight this," she admitted quietly. "These people, they're finally believing things can get better. If we lose the programs now?" Victor stood awkwardly in the doorway, then stepped inside. "You won't fight it alone. I'm testifying on your side. And I'm matching whatever legal defense you need." Elena looked up, eyes glistening. For a moment, doubt flickered across her face. Could she really trust this man who had once refused to shake her hand? But she saw the sincerity in his eyes, the same man who had quietly paid for workers' dinners weeks earlier. "Thank you," she said simply. "Not for me. For them." In that moment, the bond deepened. Victor wasn't just helping out of guilt anymore. He was beginning to care about the people, the community, and, slowly, about the woman who had shown him a different way to measure success. Have you ever had to overcome obstacles to help someone you cared about? What challenges did you face? Share your experience below. The winter months tested everyone's resolve, but Victor's commitment never wavered. He went far above and beyond what anyone expected. He personally met with the judge overseeing the lawsuit, presenting sealed financial records that proved the divestment was based on sound environmental and community data, not retaliation. He quietly covered the funds, mounting legal bills from his own pocket so Elena's emergency reserves could stay focused on the workers. When board members threatened to walk, Victor stared them down. If building empires means stepping on people, then maybe I built the wrong kind of empire. Community support poured in too. Marcus organized weekend cleanup crews that turned vacant lots near the river into temporary training grounds. Tyler and the single mother started a carpool system so parents could attend classes without missing shifts. Even some of Victor's own former contractors showed up, offering free equipment for the workshops. The warehouse buzzed with new energy, laughter mixed with the clatter of tools and the smell of shared meals. Elena, once guarded, began to open fully. She invited Victor to a small holiday gathering at the community hub. There, surrounded by families from every background, he watched her laugh freely for the first time. She told stories of her childhood, the fear of eviction notices, and the retired teacher who changed everything with one quiet act of kindness. Victor listened, really listened, and for the first time shared his own regrets about missing his children's childhoods. That night, something in him cracked open. He left carrying a plate of homemade cookies and a strange new feeling, hope. By early spring, the lawsuit was dismissed. The turning point came when Victor took the stand and said, in a voice steady but raw, I once refused to shake Dr. Brooks' hand because I was afraid of what she represented. Today I'm proud to stand beside her. Real progress isn't about tearing others down. It's about lifting everyone up. The courtroom fell silent. Elena, sitting in the front row, wiped away a tear. The transformation accelerated. The $3 billion waterfront project was completely restructured. It became the Atlanta Riverfront Innovation District, a mixed-income development with affordable housing, small business incubators, green spaces, and job training centers co-owned by the Unity Capital Fund and local residents. Victor sold a portion of his stake at a discount to make community ownership possible. His first official act on the new advisory board was a $2 million donation, which Elena's network immediately matched. The grand reopening in April was a celebration no one would forget. Colorful banners fluttered in the breeze. Food trucks from neighborhood businesses lined the walkways. Children ran through splash pads while adults toured the new training facilities. Victor stood beside Elena on a small stage, no longer the distant billionaire but a man who looked 10 years younger, smiling awkwardly in a polo shirt instead of a suit. Elena took the microphone first. A few months ago, this man refused to shake my hand. Today we're shaking hands on a future we built together. She extended her hand. This time Victor took it firmly, holding it a second longer than necessary. The crowd erupted in cheers and tears. In a full-circle moment that brought the story back to its painful beginning, Victor turned to the microphone. I spent my life believing strength meant never backing down. Elena showed me that real strength is having the courage to change. One act of kindness started all of this. Let's keep it going. Later that evening, as the sun set over the river, Elena found Victor sitting quietly on a bench watching families enjoy the new park. She sat beside him. "You did good," she said softly. "So did you," he replied. "More than good." Elena smiled. "Remember what I told my team? One handshake doesn't define us. What we build after does." Victor nodded, eyes misty. "I'm still learning. But for the first time in years, I feel useful again." The ripple effect spread far beyond the riverfront. Marcus opened his own welding school, training the next generation. The single mother expanded her business and now mentors other women. Tyler landed a supervisory role and started a veteran support group. Even Victor's estranged children began reaching out, curious about the father who had finally chosen people over pride. Elena stood taller, no longer carrying the weight alone. She had moved from survival to trust, to growth, and now to thriving, while teaching an entire community how to do the same. And Victor? The proud man who once feared irrelevance had found fulfillment in humility and connection. This story shows how one act of kindness can change everything. What's one way you could make a difference in someone's life today? Challenge yourself and share your commitment in the comments. 6 months later, the Atlanta Riverfront Innovation District was thriving in ways no one could have predicted. Victor Lang still lived in his penthouse, but it no longer felt empty. He had sold off 2 of his largest legacy properties and moved a significant portion of his personal wealth into the Unity Capital Fund. Every Tuesday and Thursday you could find him at the job fairs, wearing a simple name tag that read Victor, Volunteer. He was awkward at first, his old gruff tone still slipped out occasionally, but the teenagers and young adults loved his no-nonsense stories about building something from nothing. "I wasted decades thinking I had all the answers," he told one group. "Turns out the best answers come when you shut up and listen." His children started visiting more often. The relationship wasn't perfect, but it was healing. Dr. Elena Brooks continued leading the Unity Capital Fund, but now with a lighter heart and a bigger team. The warehouse had expanded into a full community campus with a childcare center and evening classes. She still worked long hours, but she had learned to rest. On weekends she could be seen walking the riverfront path with a quiet smile, stopping to chat with the families who now called the district home. The woman who once carried quiet rage had replaced it with quiet strength and even quieter joy. "One handshake doesn't define us," she still told her team. "What we build after does." Marcus the foreman now runs a successful welding academy that has trained over 200 young people. Tyler was promoted to site supervisor and started a mentorship program for returning veterans. The single mother expanded her catering business into 3 locations and now offers paid internships to other moms in the neighborhood. The ripple of kindness kept spreading, small gestures becoming lasting change. The most beautiful part? The city's most divided corners began finding common ground. Former skeptics from both sides attended the same block parties. Old money donors quietly increased their giving after seeing what genuine partnership could achieve. Atlanta's streets hummed with a new energy, not the loud victory of one side over another, but the steady, stubborn practice of seeing one another as human beings. This story isn't about a billionaire being cancelled or an activist winning. It's about what happens when pride steps aside and kindness steps forward. Victor learned humility. Elena proved that power used with compassion can heal more than it hurts. And an entire community discovered that when we choose to build together instead of tearing each other down, everyone rises. Stories like this remind us that extraordinary kindness exists all around us. If this touched your heart, please like this video. It helps more people discover these inspiring stories. Subscribe for more tales of human kindness that will restore your faith in humanity. And most importantly, look for opportunities in your own life to be someone's unexpected blessing. What act of kindness will you perform this week? Let me know in the comments below. Maybe it's listening to someone you disagree with. Maybe it's helping a neighbor. Maybe it's simply offering a handshake and meaning it. Whatever it is, you have the power to change someone's entire world, one small, courageous choice at a time. Thank you for watching. Remember, you don't need billions to make a difference. You only need an open heart and the willingness to try. We'll see you in the next story.